Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France, of course. You good old boys in Canada, we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful July the 31st, 2019. Ground of Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, we're a day away from transitioning into professional sports. We're getting some hot bats and fists being swung in baseball. Tomorrow there's going to be some hits swung in football with the opening of the NFL preseason.
Yep, it's always fun when people are hitting. You know, it's always wolf tickets. Guys like to hit because they know they got 15 guys around them to break up the fight. It's always something like that going on in sports. Also, World Cup's trying to expand from 24 teams to 32 because they're finding out that soccer is taken serious all over the universe. So a lot more people doing that. We have the Democrats going at it again tonight, deciding who's going to run to compete against POTUS in Detroit. Motown, what a great place to be. And I want to say that so much is happening in baseball. A couple of people have changed their zip codes, Big C, but not one has been called greedy. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. So Big C, I talked about the butter, and I think I got to cut back on it because I noticed I have to use like another belt buckle. I mean, I don't know what it is. Maybe my belt shrunk or my waistline expanded, but I don't know if butter's good every day, but it is good on a lot of things. But some good old boys, why do people want to fight, Big C? That make any sense, your thoughts?
Well, you know, when you think about fighting in baseball, I mean, I was at a baseball game before and saw a hockey game break out. And the same thing happened last night in Pittsburgh between the Reds and the Pirates.
Yeah.
I mean, this unwritten rule in baseball is that you have to defend your honor or you have to protect your side of the plate. You know, but when you got a pitcher running off the mound, charging a dugout, I have to check his sanity at that point.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not thinking that he's too salient about what he's doing, wanting to charge across the mound and take on another 26 guys, Charlton. But as he's throwing punches, he was doing it with his eyes closed. That was the most amazing part. I mean, who are you going to hit with your eyes closed? He missed on all 3 whiffs, Charlton. I mean, it was just like him trying to throw the ball across the plate. He was missing on that also. But, you know, everybody cleared the benches. They go out there and grab and hug each other and, you know, yell at each other, throw in a couple of cuss words. And, you know, they try to bleep out on television. But I guess because the game was so boring, they had to create some excitement some other way.
And, you know, sometimes egos it's like the wind. You never know which way it's going to blow. Even driving around and just driving around anywhere you go in this country, people tend to want to get on the horn. They'll get on the horn, but they'll never challenge that person if they get out of the car, if you've ever noticed that. But I want to just get your thoughts. Fighting's always been a part of sport. In fact, it's kind of good to fight because you kind of get some things out of your system that you need to at times. I don't think baseball wants to crack down on it any more than hockey. Does that make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, baseball players remind me of a dog chasing you down the street. All of a sudden you turn around, he starts checking, hey, is there somebody behind me following, you know?
Yeah, break me up.
He gets a little nervous. He's standoffish at that point. He's not so sure whether he really wants to bite you. That's what baseball players remind me of going into a fight. Now, what do they play with? They play with their hands. They're like basketball players.
Right.
They're always throwing, but they're always missing because if you break a knuckle on that hand, how are you going to hold a bat? How are you going to throw a ball?
Yeah.
So they're always conscientious of that, even like in playing football.
Yeah.
You know, got into a few fisticuffs when I was playing football.
Yeah.
And you come to the realization, I'm hitting the guy in the helmet.
Yeah.
I'm going helmet to helmet with him during the game, and this helmet is not giving away. So what's softer, my hand or my helmet? Regardless of the padding or tape that I had on my hand, it still wasn't going to affect him hitting him in the head with that helmet on. So you tried to dislodge the helmet from the skull, you know, in any opportunities you had. But I think all professional athletes have a mutual respect for each other. They might be heated at times.
Yeah.
You know, it's like getting upset with your kids or whatever. You know, get out of the house, go out of the room, whatever, go in your room.
Yeah.
You say these things. But, you know, all's good in a few minutes. You know, okay, come on, let's discuss this. That's what baseball players are like. Because after these little fisticuffs and dust-ups go on, Charlton, they still got to go back out there on the mound and face each other. You got to go in the batter's box. You got a pitcher that's on the mound that's a little peed off, and he might throw at you and get kicked out of the game, but they're really not trying to hurt each other. It's a lot of brotherly love going on the mound.
Oh, yeah, but I know that we talk about the brotherly love and how great it is, and I do believe that fighting's good for the spirit. I think if anyone has ever been through life and didn't have some type of a fight, you really don't have your confidence. You got to get in there. I know I work out with a lot of MMA guys and, of course, football players over the years. I remember I was at a gym in Northern California, and he's a small guy, but he was still a champion at the time, Cody Garbrandt. He was an MMA fighter down with Team Alpha Male in Northern California with Uriah Faber. And I was doing an interview with Uriah Faber. This was right after the McGregor and Mayweather fight. And Garbrandt let me hold his belt. The belt was heavier than I thought it was, Big C. So I'd almost dropped the belt on my foot, Big C. But I said, he's not big enough to beat me anyway. But when you look at their skills, he probably could, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, these guys are tremendous athletes when you think about what they put themselves through in the ring.
Yeah.
Fighting an opponent. I mean, when you got a guy holding the back of your head, kneeing you in the face, and you don't go down, that shows me that you're tough. Not only that, he can stand there and kick you in the head with a side strike, Charlton. So when we think about the toughness of an MMA fighter and what they go through, I mean, we revel at what boxers did when I was growing up in the ring. Sitting there saying, I couldn't let a guy hit me like that.
Right.
I could have never even wanted to think about being an MMA fighter. Not only am I getting kicked and kneed and elbowed, this is while I'm laying on the ground. This is not while I'm standing up.
The ground and pound. It's all fun. But, it's just part of life. I think if you've been playing football over the years, and I will never forget when I first started playing football, they had a thing in California called Pop Warner football. And I don't know if it's too young for players now that we know about CTE and a lot of all those things. And sometimes when I become forgetful, I kind of realize I started forgetting stuff right when I was 12. That's when I started playing football, Big C. I'll never forget running up on a player that was big, and I thought, in my mind, it kind of scared me a little bit. Guy was much bigger than I was. But after the game, he took his shoulder pads off. He was a lot smaller than the shoulder pads, Big C. So sometimes the perception is what gets you, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that's what football was. You overpad somebody, make them seem larger than life. And it's about intimidation, and at the youth level, when football was brought in, I mean, came in well after I had left high school when Pop Warner came into play, Charlton, so I never got a chance to play Pop Warner. We went right from, junior high right into freshman year in high school playing football back in those days. But, it's something that's come along. There's been a lot of questions and studies about Pop Warner. Is it too young on the developmental mind and joints of the youth of America? And I think it's something that, with the studies that have been done in professional and college football, is something they really need to take a look back at. Because you have to be concerned about the growing body and the growing mind. How much trauma can it take at that early age? And a lot of Pop Warner coaches, Charlton, these are a lot of disgruntled former athletes that are going out there living vicariously through these young people. And forcing them to go through drills and tackling techniques that they've banned now from the professional leagues. So I think it really needs to take a second look at youth sports in America.
I have a friend down in Texas, and he sells this. It's a body armor that he can use in law enforcement. Now, some things they say don't do this on TV, what you see on TV, but they have this type of filament that goes into the padding, and they hit themselves with a hammer. Now, no one with a right mind would hit themselves in the hand with a hammer, but they did it, and it didn't cause any pain. So they have different things that take the punishment away, the pain away. A lot of football programs do that. But I do know that is something that we got to keep an eye on.
When you think about taking the punishment away from the body, you're not taking the punishment away from the joints.
Exactly.
Joints are not meant to bend certain ways. And when you think about the majority injuries of youth athletes, they have broken arms, broken leg, torn knee ligaments, elbow ligaments, broken wrists. These are the things, regardless of what you put on armament-wise, you're not going to be able to protect, because you have to bend those joints during a contest. When you even think about the neck injuries that a lot of these young players, occur because they don't know the proper tackling technique. They're always lowering their head when they try to make a tackle, and they end up with these various neck injuries. So you can protect the shoulders with great shoulder pads. You can protect the thighs. You can protect the lower back with the back shield and all these things, but you cannot protect the ligaments and those bending joints, Charlton.
That's always true. And I always love talking about sports and business and politics. I do want to make sure that I'm conscientious every time that we have the program, Big C. It's a national hotline for people going through issues. And I noticed just watching the debate last night with the Democratic debates and just realizing that there's a lot of people who care about this country. But what I rarely hear is how we're going to take care of the veterans. When we talk about national health care for everybody, and we all need it. If you ever had to go to a doctor, they ask you for one thing all the time. Who's your insurance company? Do you have insurance? I mean, no matter how old you are, that's a question they ask. Do you have insurance? Well, some veterans don't have the insurance. They can go to the VA and get some help. But anyone going through issues, there's a national hotline number. It's 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. A lot of teenagers are on vacation, and I've been out on vacation as well. But there's a text number they can text because sometimes they don't want to call. But they can text 838-255. That's 838-255 if you need some help. I was talking to my son today, and he was telling me about, he's a high school kid, good basketball player, good student, but he was saying that some of his friends got hit by cars. Now, I always talk to him about if you're going to ride your bicycle, ride on the sidewalk. They have these little painted lines in California. But these kids were hit by cars while they were walking across the crosswalk. Either the car person was texting and driving, or the kid was not paying attention. Big C, they need help too, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, everybody needs help, but I think everybody has to pay attention to their surroundings. You don't worry about yourself, you worry about the people that are around you.
That's right.
You know, I've taught my kids that when they were driving. It's like, you know, when you learn how to drive, I'm not concerned about you and your acknowledgement of the road. I'm concerned about the people around you.
Right.
So you pay attention more to other people than what you pay to yourself. But when you talk about teens being hit by cars, it's just like a fan being hit in the stadium by a baseball.
Yeah.
Everyone is distracted about what they're doing. It's hard to find somebody that's in their teenage years that is moving without their cell phone in their hand.
Yeah.
They don't know how to take it out of their hand. Teenagers have forgotten how to talk to people. They lack communication skills.
Yeah.
They want to go out and they want to text. They can be sitting in the same house with their parents and they'll text their parents.
Yeah.
They won't call them. They won't talk to them. They'll text them. You know, just in the next room. They won't get up and talk to them. But I watch people all the time, even adults, walking up and down the street when I'm in town, texting on their phone.
Right.
And it's like, what happened to putting that phone up to your ear and your mouth and communicating with somebody the old-fashioned way?
Yeah, that's true, too. So it's all a fair and love and war, but I love when having a conversation in a relationship with teenagers because they tell us about things that are going on in their own lives, and people can go out and get some help. I want to just do a little sidetrack because I'm very politically inclined, at least I try to be, Big C, ever since I heard about Nixon. And I think one of the best stories told about Nixon and Watergate was done by Forrest Gump. In the movie Forrest Gump, I know it's silly, but he was saying he called the FBI or the 911 or the police. He called somebody because in the middle of the night he couldn't sleep, but he saw some people with flashlights over at the Pentagon. It was Nixon and Watergate. I thought that was great. But I want to say to Marianne Williamson, I don't care who people vote for, but this woman gave a speech last night on reparations. She was talking to Don Lemon, and they were in Detroit. Now, sometimes people grandstand, and I understand. But this lady, as a Caucasian woman, she talked about many privileges that white people have that some of them don't even know they have. But oftentimes, they don't get checked for anything. They don't get double-checked, cross-checked. They don't get racially profiled. They used to get a job. They're used to that. They're used to tracking white on the application. And I work in banking. Would you believe if you check other on the application, it's considered white and you're more likely to get the loan? I've learned that about 20 years ago in banking. I mean, and those things happen. But she talked about reparations and how this country should consider that because we built up foreign countries that we've never had slaves in those countries. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's always been something on the slate. I mean, it was given by Lincoln. It was replaced by Jackson after Lincoln's death. Charlton, it was taken away.
Yeah.
Senator Mitch McConnell, the leader of the Senate, said a couple of months ago, we've given black people reparation in America. We gave them a black president, President Obama. So what else do they want?
Yeah.
That's the narrow-minded thinking of white Americans. Like, we have ours, work to get yours, even though we've taken everything away from you.
Yeah.
This is the reason why we have voter suppression in this country. If there was not voter suppression, then there would be more black equality in America. But everything that blacks have strived to make equal and better for that culture, Charlton. There's been a fight back against from mainstream society.
Yeah.
And the reason why is that you don't want to have equality. When you talked about reparation is something that's always should have been there for African Americans. If you had 4 people in your family from the time of slavery, then you should have gotten reparation in America. Yeah. And they chose not to do that because they did not want to empower black people. And since that time, Charlton, and even in the last midterm election, when you talk about voter suppression in states like Georgia and Florida, and even other states, Charlton,
Wisconsin,
where you were getting people off the polls, you were making it very difficult to people to get to a polling station to even vote. You were closing down certain polling stations. Why is that? Only in the country where you say the land of the free and the home of the brave is that you fight against your own citizens for gaining equality.
Yeah, well, I'm impressed. I tell you, and I'm so proud when I hear Caucasian Americans who are not ignorant and saying, hey, I worked hard, that's why I got mine. You got to know that in banking, banks set aside loans for people. And the biggest group of loans that they set money aside for are white. That's why they have check what color you're on the application. Are you black, white, or other? And for every person of color, if you mark other on the application, you're more likely to get approved because the computers don't know the difference. But it was designed to give money to white men, and they were the landowners. So when someone gets a loan for a home or a car, it's not because they're smarter, not because they have better credit, not because they work harder. The banking system was set up since Reconstruction to give loans to white men. You got to know that. Start marking other on your application before Trump changes that. Big C, I want to just say also, people who are marking something on their application, and I want to just finish up on politics because I'm not ignorant, whether there's Biden, whether it's Kamala Harris, or whoever is Sanders, doesn't matter who it is. I just hope that people will vote and become engaged in the political system. I know that Detroit has its own problems, and every major city does. But I really appreciate politicians that are standing up for Baltimore, Maryland, because every city in this country has good and bad issues going on. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it does, Charlton. And I mean, when we think about the iconic cities of America, that were the industrial meccas of America, and not just at Detroit. You're looking at Baltimore, you're looking at Chicago, you're looking at Buffalo.
Yeah.
These cities were industrial havens in America. Ohio, Charlton. You know, we had cities in that state that were industrial meccas of America. Look at West Virginia.
Yeah.
You know, that state has suffered as much as any state has.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you talk about left out, because modernization have left those cities behind. The steel mills have closed down. The auto plants have closed down, Charlton.
Yeah.
Even though President Obama brought them back. When white America, when corporate America has a chance to make a nickel somewhere else, they're going to leave those people behind and go make that nickel.
Yeah.
They're not about equality in America, but they know what devastation they're going to create on the landscape of a local metropolitan area, Charlton, when they leave that industrialization out of there. And they take that plant to a foreign country, Mexico, China, Japan, wherever they want to go, Vietnam, where they can make that product at a much lesser rate, Charlton, price-wise, because they don't have to pay the employees.
Yeah.
So every time that the American government allows a company to leave the United States and bring back those imports back into this country and not charge the same rate that it would have been to make that product here in America, our government is raping the citizens of the United States.
Yeah.
I know that President Trump is always saying that he wants to stop trade with China and he wants to put larger tariffs on it. China, they're a large trade partner, but look at what Vietnam has become as a trade partner to the United States.
Yep.
Look at what Mexico has always been as a trade partner to the United States. The reason why President Trump goes after China is because they wouldn't lend him any money.
Right.
That was one of the countries that would not give him any money. So he wants to put trade tariffs on them as well as Mexico. No one in Mexico would lend him money.
Yeah.
You don't hear the president talking about putting trade tariffs on Vietnam. Matter of fact, he went and visited Vietnam to meet with Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
He went over there.
Yeah.
He doesn't talk about putting trade tariffs on Germany. Germany trades with the U.S. every day. Cars, electronics.
Yeah.
Japan trades with the U.S. But these countries, he's been able to get money. Deutsche Bank is out of Germany.
Yep.
That's where the president got a lot of money.
Yeah.
He talks about doing trade with the United Arab Emirates, MBS, who's assassinated Jamal Khashoggi, the journalist. He does business with these dictators that have given him money. There's no trade tariffs. Look at all the dictators that the president has praised. There's no trade tariffs on Russia. Russia does trade with the U.S. But the president does tariffs on countries that would not lend him private money.
Yeah, it's amazing. And for those of you who wonder about the reparations talk, and people say, oh, we don't need reparations. It was POTUS in New York City. They had the largest housing discrimination against people of color. If you did not mark white on your application, they just declined you. If you had color or black, they declined it. Google it. It's the biggest lawsuit out there. So start marking other on your application. The computer doesn't know the difference. Again, since Reconstruction, it was designed to give money to white men. You got Ancestry123.com. If you find 1% of white and you mark white on the application or other, that way you're not breaking the law. I want to say someone else who can mark white on his application, Big C, is Zach Greinke. He goes from Arizona to the Houston Astros. And you think about the sea change that just happened down in Texas. When you have a pitcher like Greinke, I remember when he was dominant for the Dodgers, they got more money, went to Arizona. They didn't call him greedy, they called him smart. Now that he's gone from Arizona to Houston, they're not calling him greedy like they do a lot of African-American athletes. They just call him smart, Big C. But if you can tell me this team, what they just did to their lineup, they have Justin Verlander, who most likely going to be a Hall of Famer. They have Zach Greinke, who most likely, if he keeps going at his rate he'll be a Hall of Famer. And Garrett Cole, that's an all-star lineup pitching. Who can beat them in a series where you just have to win 4 out of 7, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, they've really lined themselves up, the Houston Astros have, Charlton, to make a World Series run once again. If you recall just a couple of years ago when they made the trade for Verlander, when they needed to shore up their starting pitcher, and you saw what the end result was that was a World Series championship, Charlton, that they went out and destroyed the Dodgers.
Yeah.
They're lining themselves up once again. The Houston Astros are swinging some hot bats.
Yeah.
Everyone in the playoff hunt needs to shore up their pitching, whether it's starting pitching or bullpen pitching. The Astros have been solid with the bullpen. They just needed another starter to get them to the bullpen innings, and that's what they did by bringing in Greinke.
Yeah.
They're not going to have to eat all that contract. The Arizona Diamondbacks are going to eat part of that contract,
eat a lot
so
of
it makes it easier for the Houston Astros. They gave up some minor league players in this trade, so they did not hurt the current roster. They improved this current roster, so now it's between them and the Yankees right now on paper to see who's the best team in the American League.
Yeah, the Yankees, I mean, they're going to be solid, obviously. But I'm still looking around Major League Baseball, and it's about how you pitch in certain games. The Dodgers didn't really do much to make a move. I think Jensen is still a guy they bring in to close, but he's not solid anymore. He's not Chapman anymore. But maybe he'll get better in the playoffs. But I really like what Houston did. And then you have Altuve. Remember this team when they won the World Series and they beat the Dodgers. They were drafted. They did it by the draft. They took a young team and they used their development league, and they put a lot of energy and thought and training into that young team. They're still a young team, Big C. They were just outclassed last year. They had a great series with the Red Sox, who had a meteoric rise, but they've never run away from when they won that World Series. They were close to getting back last year. Would you, if you have to go best of 7, obviously, that's what baseball is, would you give them the edge over the Yankees, or do the Yankees still have too much hitting power, Big C, in the American League? Your thoughts?
Well, right now, I think I would go with the Houston Astros. If you look at the Yankees starting pitchers, Charlton, they've been atrocious since the All-Star break.
Yeah.
Their ERA has been over 6 since the All-Star break, so they've been getting lit up.
Yeah.
And so right now, they're having trouble even getting to the bullpen innings. They have the great bats. I mean, those bats will keep them in any contest.
Yeah.
But when you're giving up more runs than what you're scoring, and we saw that in the series with the Boston Red Sox when they went in there and lost 3 out of 4.
Yeah.
The Boston Red Sox have not been a hot team, but they figured out the Yankees. And so when you go against a better team like the Astros, I'm going to have to favor the Astros in that 7-game series right now.
Well, and we're looking at the National League. I'm still looking at the Dodgers, but I look at the Atlanta Braves, which I thought that's a team that, since they built the new stadium, they're not like the Bobby Cox era where they were seemingly always in the NLCS, but this is a team that will most likely get there again in the next year or two, but maybe even this year, because they got a great pitcher in Shane Green from the Detroit Tigers to go with their youth. They have so much youth on that team in Atlanta. They're a team that's going to be scary in the East. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, not only that, they picked up Dallas Keuchel a few weeks ago and put him into the rotation, so they've added a couple starting pitchers into their rotation, and they were leading the East. I think they got a 6-game lead right now in the National League East. So really, they're a hot team down there. And, you know, all you got to do is command your division for the majority part of the season. I mean, the closest team to them is the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah.
And they have struggled all year.
Yeah.
And you look at what the Dodgers are doing. The Dodgers have gotten into that point with, just like with the Yankees, where their starting pitching is struggling.
Yeah.
They're not getting guys past the 5th inning starting a game. And so when you put that type of pressure on your bullpen late in the season, that's where you start to struggle as a team.
Yeah.
The Dodgers' bats are not as hot as what they were back in June.
No.
June, they were just dominating baseball. They were running away with it by you got to July and the All-Star break. But the gap has closed between them and the West. You know, you talked about the Giants even getting into the playoff hunt.
Yeah.
So the Dodgers right now are struggling and trying to find what can they do to get their pitching kick started once again.
Speaking of the West Coast and the NL, you think about the San Francisco Giants. They made one of the best moves really in the last couple of seasons. They decided to keep Madison Bumgarner. And there's something about the trade talks really over the last 2 years. We know Bochy's on his way out. This is swan song. It's not far-fetched to see the Giants in the playoffs again in Bochy's last season in San Francisco. And I think, remember earlier in the season when they had the owner and he had some issues with his wife and the cell phone? You know how some husband and wife, they want to check the other person's cell phone to see if you're doing what they're doing. And so whatever happened with that had happened, but the ownership sat back in a little bit and they were kind of behind the scenes. But it was Madison Bumgarner that became the face of this organization again. I think it's a good thing that they kept Madison Bumgarner, because even if they don't make the playoffs with him, and I think they will, at least he gives them stability, because it's not Buster Posey any longer. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, what the Giants are looking at is that this organization got off to a real slow start. But they found their stride, you know, after the All-Star break, Charlton, and they got on a heater.
Yeah.
All you got to do is start winning some series at any point in baseball. When you start going 3 out of 4 in the series, 2 out of 3, you're gaining ground on your opponent. And once you get past the All-Star break, you're playing a lot of divisional games. And that's what the Giants have done. They've gotten healthy. They were injured. You know, when they lost Posey, everybody gave up on the team. But it took them a while to find a catcher who could work with the starting rotation. And you have to have a catcher and a pitcher on the same sync. Now that that's been settled, that Posey's not the guy looking over anybody's shoulder. And Baumgartner found his stride. I mean, he was wild early in the season. He was giving up a lot of hits. But he got back in that groove, as starting pitchers will do. He's gotten in a groove. The Dodgers pitchers are falling out of a groove. And they're national rivals. Those two teams will play a lot of games against each other as the latter part of the season. So if you can win a couple series against the Dodgers, Charlton, you can make the playoffs alone.
Oh, yeah, and he can credit Max Muncy with the Dodgers, because Muncy took him yard one time into McCovey Cove, and Muncy was staring at him. And Madison said, hey, just look at what you're going to do. I mean, run around the base. Don't look at me. Okay, they had a little fisticuffs with words. They didn't touch each other. But he told him, if you don't want me hitting the ball in the park, throw better pitches. And Baumgartner, listen, he's pitching better, your thoughts.
Well, I mean, and that's what it comes down in sports. You know, I can never understand these unwritten rules in baseball. It's like when you hit a home run, you're not supposed to celebrate. I mean, that's all you did from the little leagues on up. When you hit a home run, I mean, that was like Christmas. And so that's what you're paid to do as a hitter, is hit it out of the ballpark. And if you can't have a celebratory situation on your own, when can you have one? I mean, I remember watching players, I mean, Dave Henderson. Not Dave Henderson, Dave Parker used to play with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Used to call him Ginger. Because he used to go around the base, and he had his little fingers, his pinky. He was just, you know, his index finger, just take him about 30 seconds to get around the base. He took his time. Dave Parker could run a 4.5 40 at 6'5", 250 pounds. But it took him 30 seconds to get around the bases, Charlton. He took his sweet time. He engulfed that home run and enjoyed that whole trot around there. There's guys that's been on a sprint. I don't think you should sprint. I think you should take your time. Matter of fact, if you could stop and have a cold one at second base, it'd be okay with me.
You talk about me,
baseball is about enjoying the moment, and if somebody's going to get a little hurt and nasty because you celebrate, what does a pitcher do when he strikes somebody out? He starts pumping his fist. You know, yelling and all of that. That's acceptable. But if a batter flips his bat, takes that long loop around the bases, takes his time, everybody wants to get butt hurt behind that. I think the unwritten rules of baseball Somebody needs to learn how to spell.
Well, he can thank it's Max Muncy from the rival, the Dodgers. The Dodgers are the reason that Madison Bumgarner is pitching better. He said, you don't want me hitting home runs, pitch better, and he's been doing it. On the East Coast, Noah Syndergaard, he was talked about maybe being shipped out of New York. The Mets aren't going anywhere this year. I don't know if it makes sense to keep him or not. Maybe it would have been better to deal him and get some different energy in there in the Mets. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Syndergaard is not the problem. I mean, he was a Cy Young Award winner last year. He's just not getting any run support. The Mets did make a trade yesterday to bring in another young arm, so they brought somebody in to go along with Syndergaard. Where they've done problems with management is that they just haven't brought any bats into the organization. They've been struggling to produce runs. You think about it, Syndergaard wins 10 games last year, wins the Cy Young.
Yeah.
He was 10 and 11 as a starter. He had a losing record, and you win the Cy Young.
Yeah.
So it wasn't because you could not pitch. You couldn't get any run support.
Yeah, I think they should build up their bats more so than trying to get the best pitchers. But it's all fair and love and war. I do want to say we're going to come up with what's called the Big C pause, and after the pause, we're going to come back and talk some more baseball. And there's always talk for football. There's a lot of good things. Also want to get your thoughts on some former All-Americans going back to 1996 with Street and Smith, that magazine that came out for the All-American team, and see where guys landed up. Even though that's 23 years ago, it's always fair and love and war. We'll take the Big C pause. We'll come right back, and we hope that you'll come back with us. All right, we are back on Big C Sports after the Big C pause, and I really appreciate what we're doing with the show and the support we're getting from our corporate sponsors. In fact, you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 network for podcasting in the universe, on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on YouTube. You can follow us on Spreaker. If you have a television set in your home, and most people do, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast. And what I really like is the app called Alexa. Say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You're here. Welcome to the show. I'll introduce Big C. He'll do his thing. And I really appreciate all of our sponsors for the support. I want to say, on this date in baseball, July 31st, it was 2010. The Colorado Rocky star, it was Carlos Gonzalez. He homered in the 9th inning to hit for the cycle. It's so rare to see that, but it happened this date, Big C, back in 2010. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, that's an amazing feat to be able to hit for the cycle at any time in baseball. But to accomplish that in the 9th inning with a walk-off home run, Charlton, what a great accomplishment to be able to do that, to not only get your hits for the cycle, but win the game for your team with a walk-off home run. That's making history.
Yeah, and when little kids play, talk about the youth and how sports is a billion-dollar industry and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry that we all work in. Well, every kid, at least when I was a kid, you always had that imaginary game in the backyard. It's the bottom of the 9th. You're down 7-6. Bases are loaded. The count's 3-2, and you hit a home run. In fact, a grand slam. Anything that's a walk-off and you win, isn't that what little kids do when they're playing in their parents' backyards? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, everybody fantasizes about hitting a home run, kicking a game-winning field goal, game-winning touchdown pass, knocking down the game-winning shot in basketball, and hitting the game-winning goal in hockey, Charlton. It's the joy of every youth of America to have that fantasy.
Yep.
And to have it done as an adult and be paid for it, Charlton, you go back to that youthful vigor that you once had. I mean, that childishness comes out in every adult.
Yeah, it really does. And I just want to take some time with all the movement in baseball, and today we got past the trade deadline. And I know if it wasn't for Big C Sports, you probably wouldn't hear about it. I want to just bring up, because I want to pay homage to it, Curt Flood, African-American baseball player. He's the reason that so many players have 7 figures in the bank now. It's not because they worked hard. It's not because they prayed for it. It's because Curt Flood challenged and created the help for free agency, that people could take their talents and they could break the bank or the piggy bank. I just want to get your thoughts on what Curt Flood means to the baseball universe, and you won't hear about it except for Big C Sports. Big C, your thoughts on Curt Flood?
Well, he means a payday for everybody, Charlton, regardless of how good a player that you are. you have the option now in free agency, Charlton, to create that type of wealth, that lifetime of wealth through one big contract. We've seen it in football. We've seen it in basketball, baseball, Charlton. Curt Floyd is an icon when it comes to making other people's money, and they don't even realize it.
Yeah, they don't realize it. And I just appreciate the fact that as I listened, you said something the other day, and it just made me laugh. But it made me laugh later. It didn't make me laugh as much at that time. But you said that we, as African Americans, and not all of us, but we talk about sports like it's lunch. And almost every day people eat lunch. And everybody can do what they want to do. You don't have to like what we're doing, but we're growing, and that's progress. Some people, they're not even on the air anymore. People that I used to look up to. It's just God's fate is what I'll call it. But there are people who you will not even know who Curt Flood is because they're so busy yelling at each other about who's going to play in the Hall of Fame game or who's going to be the next all-star player, irrespective of what league it is. And this is where I commend you, because Curt Flood is the reason that so many people have become multi-millionaires. But isn't that like people who go to college and they don't think their parents, they say, I did it on my own. Their parents fed them. Number one, they gave birth to them. Their parents made sure they gave them food and shelter and clothing. Their parents gave them something to eat. Their parents made sure when they were sick, they gave them something to break the fever. When they went to go to college, the parents gave them some money. They gave them some love, some support to help them out. The parents did a lot of things for a lot of people who are wealthy nowadays. And sometimes people don't even thank their parents. And to me, that's anathema. And there are times when guys get the big contracts, and none of the major media networks will even give homage to Curt Flood. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they're not going to do it, Charlton, because that mantra was led by an African American. And no one in television wants to make a heroic figure out of an African American in America these days.
Yeah, well, we will, and I love doing that. I just want to think about some of the active players, just my opinion, guys that most likely, irrespective of what's being talked about, who got traded where, that are most likely going to be first ballot Hall of Famers, active players today. Albert Pujols, you think about how great he's been, 39-year-old, and is a man that he's been a 2-time World Series winner, and a 10-time All-Star, and even because of Curt Flood, he's become a very, very wealthy man. Big C, your thoughts on Pujols?
Well, Pujols has been an iconic figure in baseball for a long time, starting in St. Louis, where he was an all-star caliber player for many years. Moving on in free agency that was created by a former St. Louis Cardinal, Curt Flood, going to the Angels of Anaheim and extending his career out there. And just the other night, he hit a 650 Major League home run, Charlton. He's been a consistent superstar in Major League Baseball.
Very dominant. And then you look at his teammate, Mike Trout. I know he's young and the book is still out, but he's an 8-time All-Star. If he stays healthy, he has a chance to break many more records than Mike Trout. I still think, because I grew up around Barry Bonds and grew up watching Reggie Jackson, I'm still not as impressed with Mike Trout yet. But if he can hit the home runs the way Reggie Jackson did and the way, of course, Barry Bonds did, nobody could. And even Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, I still don't think Trout's of that ilk, but he's getting the print to be that way. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, I look at Mike Trout a lot differently. Right now, Mike Trout is the best player in baseball. When you look at his overall stats, his on-base percentage, his home runs, his RBIs, his batting average, he warrants the contract that he has with the California Angels. He just happens to be with a team that's not challenging for a title. If he was, if he was on the Los Angeles Dodgers, Charlton, there wouldn't be any doubt in anybody's mind that he was the best player in baseball. But you take his statistical numbers and compare him against any other big leaguer in baseball right now, Charlton, he's hands down the most valuable player in Major League Baseball.
Another pitcher that's most likely going to be headed to the Hall of Fame is a Cy Young winner, 5 All-Star nods. He led the National League in strikeouts the past 3 seasons, and that's none other than the great Max Scherzer. I think he's going to be Max. You can call him Max Scherzer, Big C. He's Hall of Fame material, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, right now he has a hitch in his giddy-up. He's been put on the injury list with the Nationals, Charlton. He's struggling as a starter. I mean, he's a dominant pitcher when he's healthy.
Yeah.
But right now he's on the 15-day DL. Sometimes you throw too hard and too much, Charlton, and all of a sudden you find your career coming to a halt. And right now he's going to have to worry about the arm problems that he has.
And staying healthy, definitely there. We just talked about this next guy, Justin Verlander. You think about the 8-time All-Star, has a Cy Young Award, an MVP, an AL Rookie of the Year, and an ALCS MVP, and a World Series title. And what they just did down there in Texas, of all places, you know what? What could Jerry Jones learn about what the Houston Astros just did? They get the best players they can find, and they pay them the most money. They don't make them hold out. And Verlander might be looking at another World Series, at least appearance this year. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the difference in baseball and in football is that teams can eat part of the contract when you left. The Detroit Tigers ate part of Verlander's contract when they traded him to Houston, and the same thing just happened with Greinke. The Diamondbacks are going to eat part of his contract. But the thing about baseball versus football is that you put together trades in the latter part of the season to go put yourself on a championship run. The thing about in the NFL, teams are not always that apt about putting players in play to get another team to a championship. The thing that football has to look at also is that the players have to have a better knowledge of what they're doing and what they're negotiating when it comes to the collective bargaining. Football could take a page from baseball. Their collective bargaining agreement allows them to make the money, and football doesn't. People want the money in football right now. That's why I said when they sign these contracts, they say, I want this long-term 5-year deal because I want to be guaranteed money. Then 2 years into the deal, somebody's making 3 times the money that they're making. Oh, I'm not satisfied any longer. But players do that to themselves. They need to wake up and not blame the owners.
Speaking of waking up, another player that's Hall of Fame material, still want to see him win a World Series, none other than the great Clayton Kershaw. Here's a man who's pitched, he's winning over 90% of his games. You think about him, over 500, he's 90 games over 500. He's struck out over 2,385 hitters, 3 Cy Youngs, a National League MVP award, an 8-time All-Star, but he disappears in the playoffs. And I would hope that if they do win a World Series this year, it's not going to fall on Kershaw this time, and that might help him get over the hump. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it should never fall on Kershaw, but Kershaw has to also park his ego. When you say he wants to be the ace of the staff, and the ace of the staff is getting lit up, Charlton, that comes on you personally. You got to be willing to become that number 2 or that number 3 starter down the line when you get into the playoffs. And the Dodgers, from a managerial perspective, Martinez has to go with the hot hand, not go with the big name.
That's very true. Another guy that I like out of Northern California, Vallejo, they have a lot of good stuff happening in Vallejo, a lot of developing communities in the Bay Area. CC Sabathia, this guy is amazing. Over 3,000 strikeouts, a milestone in his final season. And he still has, he's never been that guy that looked like he was a baseball player. He wasn't very svelte and in his shape, but he used that extra size to maybe have more command of the ball. He'll try to add a second Yankees World Series titles to the Cy Young Awards, the ALCS MVP, the 6 All-Star appearances, but he's never been in the best shape, but he throws like nobody else. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, everybody who plays baseball doesn't look like a bodybuilder. There's been many pictures over the years that you look at them and it's like you wonder if they'll be able to make it out to the mound from the dugout. But, you know, CC Sabathia is a huge hulking man, stands about 6'7", 285 pounds, and that's part of the power that he has on the mound, Charlton, getting that fastball over the plate. You know, you use all that girth and size to help you and take a lot of the stress off of your arm.
I just want to get a couple more players that I think are all-star and Hall of Fame material. And we just talked about one today, this Madison Bumgarner. I think the Giants did a favor mostly to their fan base at Oracle Ballpark. It used to be AT&T Pac Bell Park. Barry Bonds Place, we all know what it should be called, Barry Bonds Place. But Bumgarner, the guy's 29. He's a World Series MVP, an NLCS MVP. He still has a lot of pitching going for him. And Max Muncy for the Dodgers, you can thank him. He said, if you don't want me to hit home runs, throw better pitches in Bumgarner. Listen, I think he's going to add to the Hall of Fame roster that the Giants have had going back to Willie Mays. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, the thing about Bumgarner, as I said, he got off to a slow start. He's corrected himself and helped get the Giants into a pennant chase, Charlton, and that's what you have to do as a pitcher. You have to have pride in your profession, and he didn't seem to have that in the early part of the year. Hopefully he can keep this streak going that he's had and get the Giants into an all-star, into a pennant race position.
They'll definitely be there. Last guy I want to finish on, and there's so many more, but when people moving around today and pitchers making their money, I think about David Price, and everybody has something. Everybody has to overcome something. And you think about what he's done, the Cy Young winner with the Tampa Bay Rays and World Series winner with the Boston Red Sox. There's still life to come. He's 31-year-old, but he's survived a lot of issues, and everybody goes through something. But if anyone can get the chance to hear his name called for the Hall of Fame induction, here's a guy that can do it with some scars, but it's not what you go through, it's how you come through it. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this young man has had struggles throughout his professional career. I mean, even as a rookie, he found himself sleeping in the back seat of his car because he didn't realize he could afford an apartment, and he was the number 1 overall pick in baseball out of Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
But he's had his ups and downs in his major league career, Charlton, starting with the Rays, but he has accomplished all the things that you want from a pitcher, from being an all-star to an MVP to being a World Series champ. He struggled up until last year with the Red Sox, but he proved his worth in the World Series, Charlton, being the most dominant pitcher for the Red Sox in that series.
Yeah, I really appreciate people who go through something and come out on top. I want to bounce the ball over to the NBA just shortly, because I think we've already determined that all the splash about where people are going to end up in the NBA, they're still going to give out one trophy at the end of the year. Will it be the Clippers? Will it be the Lakers? Will it be Milwaukee? Who knows? It won't be Toronto, most likely, Big C. But Portland, a team that's kind of in the abyss, you would think, because they're the furthest team northwest, and outside of them, you're looking at Sacramento and Golden State. But they did a good thing today. We talked about $100 million on just this week. We talked about people wanting to have $100 million. And I think the ownership in Portland, they listen. Portland Trailblazers, C.J. McCollum gets a 3-year, $100 million contract extension. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum has been re-signed by the Portland Trailblazers. They keep the nucleus of that organization intact, and they proved last year by going deep into the Western Conference playoffs, Charlton, that they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. They're a young team. They've made some moves here in the offseason.
Yeah.
But when you keep the nucleus intact, Charlton, that backcourt, they have the best backcourt potentially in the Western Division. It's going to be between them and Houston at the, all the way through the midpoint of the season, who has the best backcourt in the West.
Yeah, they're very dominant too. And speaking of just expansion, we talked about Big C Sports expanding. I want to thank my friend from Ireland for following Big C Sports. And then you think about the World Cup across the pond over in France. The World Cup will expand from 24 teams to 32 teams. Soccer is so popular nearly everywhere in the universe. And now they're giving more people a chance to enter it, more countries. And I think the African continent, we talked about how some of the teams felt they were jobbed to giving the business last year in the World Cup on the women's side. It's going to open up more countries, giving them hope that they can represent their country in the World Cup. I think it's a good thing. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, expansion is what's become of most sports, Charlton. When you think about Major League Baseball, it expanded to the wild card series. The NFL expanded to the wild card series.
Yeah.
They've done that in the NCAA tournament in basketball. I remember when it was just 16 teams, and it ended up to 32.
Yeah.
Now it's up to 68. So, expansion has been good for most sports, Charlton. Even Olympic sports, they're constantly adding sports to the Olympics. And when you think about soccer being the worldwide phenom that it is in the sports world, where it's played in every country around the world, and every little boy and every little girl understands what that game is all about, to add more countries, to give more opportunity for the world to be seen and represented, it's going to be a good thing.
I remember just growing up watching my kids play soccer. I have a daughter. She scored 6 goals with her left foot. She's a right-footed kicker, but she scored 6 goals with her left foot. I was telling everybody how proud I was. She said, "Dad, it was my right foot." So, okay, who cares what foot they scored the goal? And my son had 11 stops one time in a soccer game. Really appreciate that. Makes me go back to my youth, Big C. I want to just bring up something before we get into the world of some football talk. And, anyone being perfect is nearly impossible. And beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But when it comes to football, the Miami Dolphins great Nick Bonacani passed away. And he played on the only undefeated team in the universe in NFL football, Big C, for the 72 Dolphins. And I know we think about Bob Shula, or Don Shula, and how many great players that great Hall of Fame coach has had under his tutelage, Big C. And his son also had become paralyzed, and he was there for his son and helped create other foundations to help other people. He went on to become not only a Super Bowl champion, he was a TV personality, he became a lawyer and an agent. And you think about Buoniconti, he wasn't a 6'4", 6'3", 250-pound linebacker. He was about 200 pounds, if that, maybe 5'11". But give me your thoughts on, it's not the size of that man, it was the heart and the character, and that's going to make him more missed than even being on an undefeated NFL team. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, heart and character personified Nick Buoniconti. He was a diminutive middle linebacker in that day and era of the NFL. I mean, he was only 5'11". I mean, Mike Singletary was 5'11". When you talk about middle linebacker, Sam Mills was only 5'9", so he wasn't the smallest middle linebacker ever to play in the history of the game, but he was the linebacker who spearheaded the no-name defense in Miami.
Yep.
And they went undefeated for a 17-game stretch, 14 regular season games, as well as the Super Bowl. So the only team that will have that mantra most likely in NFL history, because the New England Patriots fell short.
Yeah.
But, when you think about the greatness that was on that defense, you had a bunch of guys came together. Everybody remembers the one Super Bowl in the undefeated year, Charlton, but this team competed in 4 Super Bowls in total with that group and that host of characters.
Yeah.
They went out and they played football the right way. This was in the non-steroid era of football. They were clean. They were athletes. They banded together as brothers. And Nick Buoniconti was that defensive leader. They had several Hall of Famers on that defense, but he was the nucleus of it, and he will be missed because he was an advocate for athletes with struggles, Charlton, with physical disabilities because of his son had become paralyzed. He was a huge advocate for spinal disorders, Charlton, in athletes. Nick Buoniconti was a greater individual off the field than he was on the field.
Isn't it amazing that when you look back at that team that went undefeated, 14-0 is not like going 16-0 regular season like they are today, and now the league's talking about 18 regular season games. But if there's anything, we think about the UCLA 88 wins in a row. You talked about Oklahoma as their football program. I think they won 58 in a row. And there's so many. Look at what the great UConn has done out of Auriemma. I think they broke UCLA's record for winning for winning games without a loss. But it's not about going undefeated as much as it is about the character of those people. And I want to just get your thoughts, and nobody knows, it's just an opinion. But why hasn't another team, and we're coming up on another, 50 Super Bowl 54, why hasn't any other team been able to do what the 72 Dolphins did, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, ironically, the New England Patriots did do that, Charlton. The New England Patriots went 20-0 prior to losing the Super Bowl to the New York Giants.
Yeah.
So that record has been eclipsed in total numbers of consecutive wins. That's what a lot of people don't do. What everybody wants to hang the mantra on is a complete undefeated season. But they won 20 games. That is the most consecutive wins in a single season in NFL history is by the New England Patriots. It's just the Miami Dolphins have the shingle of having the undefeated for the entire year. And they played 4 less games than what the New England Patriots did. Yeah,
well, we know it's always tough, but so again, our thoughts and prayers are with the Nick Buoniconti family and all the people who have been touched by his spirit and what he did to help other people. I want to come out to the West Coast, and you look at John Gruden. Gruden has hopes on the Raiders going undefeated, Big C, at least before kickoff of preseason, but Gruden's has he lost his mind? I remember in the movie Star Trek, he says, "Spock, are you out of your Falcon mind?" So I didn't say anything bad. I said he's a Falcon, right? But Gruden, he says that Nathan Peterman is a quality NFL quarterback. Now, this is the quarterback whisperer in John Gruden. I want to get and he might be right or he might be wrong, Big C. Which one would you bet on, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if John thought he was whispering or talking out loud when he told the media that Nathan Peterman was blowing on him and that he showed a lot of improvement and excitement in training camp. I think he was looking at it from the defensive back perspective because he was throwing the balls to them just like he was throwing to the receivers. When you look at Nathan Peterman, and everybody says that John Gruden is a guru, that he's a genius. Well, I guess in the eye of the beholder. Because Nathan Peterman, in his NFL career, has the worst statistical numbers of any starting quarterback in the history of the NFL.
I know.
If you go back and look at the games that he has played for the Buffalo Bills, he has more interceptions than touchdowns.
Yeah.
His completion percentage is on the south side of the Mason-Dixon line.
Right.
I mean, when you talk about a travesty as an NFL quarterback and a joke as a player, and I mean, you don't want to knock anybody realistically. You want to give kudos and praise to everybody and hope that they make it.
Yeah, we're being
But when you talk about a joke of a quarterback and the number of quarterbacks who could not get a job, Colin Kaepernick could not get a job in the NFL. Not because he wasn't a quality player, because if he had played as bad as Nathan Peterman, I could see him not having a job in the NFL.
What did he have?
Nathan Peterman is getting a paycheck in the NFL.
Yeah.
Then everybody in the NFL knows that all the owners and the general managers and head coaches are lying about Colin Kaepernick because this guy is in training camp.
Yeah. Peterman, did he have 5 interceptions in the first half of a game? And for when Buffalo played down for the LA Chargers, I believe. It's like, is this real or is it not? But he's still in the league. And one more thing I'll mention, because with Colin Kaepernick and the fight for equality, and I really appreciate Marianne Williamson talking about reparations for people of color and how there's been tremendous wealth built up in white communities through banking. It's not because you work harder, it's because you got in that skin privilege. Anyone should just study what Lincoln did with 40 acres and a mule. And if you tell me that I'm wrong, then I'll stop talking about it. But just Google it. I want to bring up a little bit more things with football, Big C, in the NFL. Wide receiver Michael Thomas. You know, we've been talking about $100 million. Wide receiver Michael Thomas of the Saints becoming officially the highest paid non-quarterback player in the NFL. Big C, who's next?
Well, you know, everybody's thinking that Julio Jones will be next in line to get that big contract. But Michael Thomas today eclipsed the $100 million mark with the New Orleans Saints and $62 million guaranteed as a wide receiver. He's had more receptions in his first 3 years in the NFL than any receiver in NFL history. And I don't care which great receiver you ever talk about, none of them have put up the numbers that Michael Thomas has put up as a pro with the New Orleans Saints. The thing about Michael Thomas, he's only 25, 26 years old, Charlton. That's all he is. Julio Jones is 30. You can't give Julio Jones a 5-year contract as a wide receiver with the Atlanta Falcons. The most Julio Jones can get is probably a 3-year extension, because you don't want to play a 35-year-old wideout anymore because the money and the health issues that Julio has had over time. But Michael Thomas has just gotten better and better each year. As long as he has Drew Brees throwing to him, I don't think he has a worry in the world down in New Orleans. They know they got the top-flight receiver that can work well with their quarterback. Not only that, they have Tyson Hill and Teddy Bridgewater in the wing that can work well with him also. So New Orleans signed somebody that they're going to have until he's 30 years of age, Charlton. He'll be the same age that Julio Jones is right now, but I can guarantee you got Amari Cooper down in Dallas crying he wants that money. Julio Jones is crying that he wants that money. All the receivers now, there's been a benchmark set. Everybody cried when Odell Beckham got $47 million 2 years ago from the Giants, saying, wow, they overpaid him. You think about Michael Thomas. He just doubled up on Odell Beckham, on and off the field.
On and off the field. And we were just saying, you can Google one of our shows. I know it was this week. It was called $100 million. And since things come in threes, and we've had 2 players go for $100 million since we even named the show. Big C, what I love about what we're doing is I think our sponsor, the support, growing leaps and bounds. Don't listen to anybody who's not sitting with you in the driver's seat. Everybody has opinions. Do it this way, do it that way. No, do it your way. I want to say you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, an iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports now on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on YouTube. If you have a TV in your home, and most people do, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television. And what I really like is the app by Alexa. If you have Alexa, say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I'll mention Big C and he'll do his thing. And I just want to thank our sponsors for their support. There are people that I looked up to, and their show's no longer on the air. But Big C Sports is growing strong, and I really thank our sponsors and your hard work, Big C, for that support. There's one more thing I want to say. I was looking at Stephen Smith college football from 1996, and it had a quarterback on the front by the name of USC. His name was Brad Otten. He didn't go on to do a lot of great things in the NFL, but there were also some other players in that magazine, Big C, that went on to do great things. I know there's a lot of players that are going to get the chance with football kicking off tomorrow in the Hall of Fame game. Just keep playing. Just keep believing. You got to believe, you got to believe, you got to believe. Big C. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, all those early season fight and sweating contests that you had in training camp for the Denver Broncos and the Atlanta Falcons will end tomorrow night. They both made the trip today into Canton, Ohio, getting prepared for tomorrow's football game, Charlton, the Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio. So a lot of rookies are going to get their first chance at live action against somebody they don't have to see every day in the locker room.
And that's always what makes it fun. I just wish everybody health, wealth, and wisdom, and you can follow us every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.